Today we're talking about Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, and I think there's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna go over my pros and cons list, I think, for this specific mode as we dive through different features in the blog. But overall, one of the things to keep in mind that pretty much if it existed in Cold War Zombies, it's pretty much being carried over. That's enemies, perks, ammo mods, pack-a-punch, weapon rarity. A lot of those things are essentially carrying over, and we're carrying those systems because this is a Treyarch Zombies. I know they made Vanguard Zombies, but that was a complete flop. They really didn't have time to work on it, and it was kind of awful overall. So if you ended up playing Cold War Zombies, you like Cold War Zombies, you're probably going to like this mode. On top of that, they're bringing in some DMZ elements, and I think there were very few DMZ elements that were essentially added to this. Outbreak kind of already had these features before DMZ had them. Whether it was infilling or exfilling, that was an Outbreak. You could have chose your loadout. You could have had item permanence where you upgraded your different perks, your weapons, all that stuff prior to loading into matches so that when you started, you would already have a leg up versus a brand new account. So a lot of these things are there. Even the AK that we had in DMZ or several other of the different quests that were essentially would be considered a side Easter egg or an Easter egg if you were really comparing it to Zombies on how you get all the parts together, you craft it, and now you have it. It's very similar to that. So I think if you were a fan of that, you're going to probably love it. If you were a fan of Outbreak, even more so. I think there are obvious drawbacks that we'll start off with. Obviously, it's not round based, so that's a huge drawback for a lot of people, which means you can't go high rounds, which a very niche amount of the community really enjoy that, going to round 100, going to the highest round possible, how fast they can get up there. There's no mainline Easter egg right off the bat. I think there's going to be some side Easter eggs that are probably important and good to know, but mainline Easter egg probably won't happen until a later date. Could be season 1, could be season 2, and those are kind of a big deal. But to be fair, I think there's a lot of people who play Zombies just to kind of get the Zombies experience, maybe never done an Easter egg. I recently went through and did every Easter egg from Cold War for each of the various maps, and I did the 2 Outbreak Easter eggs as well as finish it all with the Super Easter egg, which allows you to start off with a purple weapon. And I went through all that just so I can kind of get a little bit more familiarity. And the more I played it, the more I realized DMZ stole from Outbreak, and it just kind of got repurposed into a different form, obviously within the IW engine. The other part is some people will not like the fact that it's not quads, it's ends up being trios, that there are 8 teams on the map that are PvE based that you could be friendly with or never really interact with. I think for some people that's kind of annoying to have other players on there, especially if you're more of a solo style player. You could do no fill, but there's still going to be people on the map that you could randomly engage with and have these little engagements with where maybe you're helping them out, maybe they help you out, and you could assimilate up to 6 players. For some, that's going to be a big turn off for them, and that's okay. I understand that if you prefer that. The other part is that it only has a 1-hour time limit. This is kind of something we've known. There are ways to extend that time where maybe you finish a mission and at the end of it, of the hour, you exfil to another mission, which will start another new 1-hour timer. So technically you stretched out the time, you could probably get a 2-hour session in on one map. But that is the cons. I think those kind of address most of the glaring issues with it. Obviously, some of the stuff is copy and pasted over. Like we have the operator system here that you're able to have multiple operators and have them well looted, where maybe you get all set up on one, and you load in with the next, you get all set up, so that if you happen to die, you can load in and be good to go. I think that is a pretty good method that they're taking from DMZ, the multiple operator. The infill. This is just kind of an expansion of what we saw with DMZ, but also being able to start the match with fully kitted stuff. And this is one of the big differences when we get into our pros, which we'll talk about now, is I think that there's several pros that you could really go into on this. And I think one of them is the camos. I think the camos look good. I think they're going to be a little bit easier and straightforward to get. And it's also going to provide an opportunity to level your weapon pretty comfortably. Whether you want to stay in tier 1 and be safe and stress-free and relaxed, you can do that. If you want to go into tier 2 and maybe get pack-a-punch and stuff like that, you can definitely do that and have a pretty good experience while you're going for your camos. I think the con I mentioned earlier, which is it's only an hour time, is also could be like transitioned into a pro because it's kind of like checkpointing your session. If you built up enough schematics and you've kind of built out your operator and you're like, hey, you know what? I really want to go in and I want to tackle this harder content. You can load in with a triple packed weapon, fully upgraded to yellow, go in with jug, stamina up, and a couple other things for your stuff so that when you load in, you're already at round 35, which for some, for me in particular, I really like the idea that, hey, I can load in with the pack-a-punch gun. I don't have to go to like round 7 or 8 or scavenge the map for a while to get my first pack-a-punch and then to get the second pack. You can literally start right off the bat. And this is going to be helpful with challenges too. So it's kind of rewards your time a little bit, but it does suck on the other end. If you really wanted to go like 5 hours, you kind of got these little checkpoints in between, which I could see it both ways, but I think that's really cool. You're gonna have all these schematics to work with, and you'll be able to load in with multiple matches. And since things will be on cooldown, one round you're gonna use something, the other one you might use something different. So there's gonna be variance to the matches as well. It's not gonna be like the exact same the way that typically Outbreak and regular zombies typically are. Even if you're going for high rounds or if you're going for the Easter egg, you kind of have these steps that you have to do at the varying checkpoints. This one will have a little bit more variety, which adds to replay value even beyond the missions, because I think there's still gonna be people that want to do camos, do harder boss fights, maybe do a boss fight with the pistol or whatever the heck, or maybe you assimilate up to 6 and you try to farm the entire lobby to get everyone together, and maybe you do an activity with like 24 people or something crazy. There is some opportunity for that. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to enjoy that, but I do like that part of it. The video doesn't have a sponsor, but it is brought to you by me. So if you want to support the channel, please do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe if you're looking to find your way back. I will be posting zombies content on my second channel, which is linked to the top of the description. Let's get back into it. And then you can get specific objectives that you're going to do. So there's randomness with that. Maybe you go, oh, we need to do these 5 things. Well, next match, you need to do 5 different things. You're playing round-based zombies, it's literally like, all right, let's go to round 6, turn on the power. All right, cool, we got Pack-a-Punch 1. Let's do this side Easter egg, first step. All right, cool, round 10, now we can do the next step. It's so like mechanical in its nature that way that I could understand how sometimes people would get bored of that. But I could also see how people find that gameplay rewarding as you go into the higher end. So you get the trade-offs there. I think another part is that you can literally play however you want. And for me, I know that I'm gonna be able to tackle the hardest content pretty early on, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people that have never played zombies and maybe didn't even touch DMZ, and they're going to be playing this for the first time. This is very new player friendly, and I think that's good for the player base because that will grow the audience and the community with that. And if you like the mode, that'll allow them to continue reinvesting in it. And that's one thing that missed out with DMZ is they had PvP, which was okay, but they didn't really set it up the right way. They could have done it like the Dark Zone. I think DMZ with the Dark Zone, like the Division had, could have been phenomenal. So if you wanted to stay and avoid PvP, maybe you could have done that for the majority of your time, but then if you wanted to do specific objectives, maybe you'd have to go in those specific areas. So I think they missed the mark, and it allowed the community to get too toxic. Call of Duty community is inherently toxic, but at the end of the day, you don't want the entirety of every match just teams hunting people partying up to 6-mans pre-made, all wearing the same clan tag, meet up at this area, party up, and then just kind of run around the lobby, killing people, trying to just enjoy the mode. So I think DMZ definitely cannibalized itself with the PvP aspect, especially not putting it in a way that made sense and that would work. They took a risk, it failed, and that's why it's essentially being vaulted. I think that's a huge problem there, but it is what it is. So like I was saying, it is very new player friendly. So if you want to be able to go ahead and take that slow and steady approach, maybe level your weapons, just BS with your friends, run up into random teams, help them out, maybe go super aggro on some other content, you can do literally whatever you want, even if it's just stay in the starter area and level, whatever. You get full autonomy to essentially do what you want, where you want, how you want on the map. And that ties into the next part, was that you get to play on the entirety of Urzikstan. Urzikstan is the brand new Battle Royale map launching sometime in December for Warzone with all the integration and changes, whatever they're going to do. But you will actually be able to play on the brand new map. It's very large scale and you can literally explore every inch of it. To my knowledge, you can explore pretty much every inch of it. You might not want to go to the tier 3 zone without being triple pack a punch with jug and stamina up and all the other perks, but you can definitely do that. That is, I think, is a step up compared to Outbreak, where it was kind of a little bit of RNG. You'd load in on one map and then you teleport to the next map, and it could be a completely different map that you didn't maybe want to enjoy. This one, everything is all in one place so that you can kind of explore whatever area of the map you want. And I think that is pretty solid to have access to Urzikstan a month early, especially if you're a battle royale player, want to kind of chill out. Maybe you like plunder or whatever. You're going to have access to the map just a little early. You don't have to be a sweat to enjoy the map, right? You can go ahead and kind of go in. The other part is that the storytelling is going to be a little different. And I think this one is a drawback, kind of similar to one of the negatives I said, where there's no Easter egg. But one of the biggest problems with Easter eggs is it was so like final in a lot of ways. You kind of had to wait till a new map came out, or they added a new step or whatever. I think how they're choosing to do it with acts and then story missions and then cutscenes is going to be interesting. I don't know if that's going to be better or worse. I think that it'll probably last longer. I know that you could go in and you could do pretty much any of the Cold War Easter eggs, probably in about an hour each. If you knew what you were doing, maybe you had a Sherpa to kind of guide you, you could probably do all of them in under an hour. And then you'd have the opportunity to, all right, boom, that was it, done. And versus with this, you're going to have several missions, and it's going to be a little bit more time consuming. And then there's going to be a little bit lengthier story, and they can just add on more missions to tell the story as they add on seasons, which they never really did with round based all that often. Once the map was kind of out, it had the Easter egg, it was kind of left alone. I know they added Easter eggs to Outbreak later on, but it's kind of like one of those things where the base map, Die Machine did not actually have like additional Easter eggs to my knowledge. Even like a year late, nothing happened, you know? So I think that could be a drawback. And then one of the biggest things that I think will differentiate this from multiplayer is there's no skill-based matchmaking, right? We don't have skill-based matchmaking in there to like get really sweaty. And then why the skill-based matchmaking, not just because the matches are sweaty, but because if I want to play with somebody who is kind of a casual, they really can't play together, because if I play with them, the match is already going to be too hard for them or way too easy for me, and we don't have a really good experience. With this, you can kind of really play with friends of varying skill levels, and it's not like the matchmaking's out to get one, you or them, you know? So it's kind of how that part works. So it's a pretty straightforward system. I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be a lot of potential with taking some of the best stuff from DMZ. Like we can see here, we're going to have the loadout system. You're probably going to want to get the second and third insured slot. Make sure you're looting contraband weapons so you can take those into future missions. You're going to have the different zombies upgrades. These are the ammo or the field upgrades. I think for new players, Aether Shroud is probably the way to go. But looking at some of the leaked missions, I think you're going to have to use energy mines and frenzied guard to do specific challenges. I know that the Tesla Storm has been used in Easter eggs in the past, so maybe you got to use something with that, even if it's a side Easter egg that people figure out relatively quickly when the map comes out. It's a huge map though, and I would imagine, knowing Treyarch, they probably snuck a little bit here and there throughout the map, and people will be finding out stuff for days to come as the game comes out. And it kind of goes through each of the ones. They all, like I said, are copied from Cold War. So if you have familiarity with that, you're good to go. There's a two system thing here, which is the acquisitions and the schematics. I think this is probably the key element of the game. And I think when I first start out, I'm probably going to just be farming the missions and schematics and try and figure out some of the fastest ways to get schematics, so that when I load in or infill to the match, like you can in, you know, in the mode, you will be able to start with a few more acquisitions, which are items that essentially you'll have an inventory. And you can say, you know what, I'm going to take this item in. And then as soon as you take it in, you can craft another one, and it'll essentially be on cooldown. Starts at that point. You can lower the cooldown by exfilling successfully and those types of things. In the beginning, you can see right here, it says that the schematics, you can craft up to 21 available, and then you only have 3 acquisitions available. And you can either find those through looting. Maybe you get a rare one and you're going to be like, I'm saving this one until we're doing the main boss mission or whatever the case is. Or you can just make sure you're crafting them up. So you'll have the opportunity there. And then you're going to have Ethereum returns. Obviously, these were used in Cold War as well as the Ether tools, which were used to upgrade your rarity. These are pretty rare to find though, but you'll be able to get those specific items. So these will allow you to pack a punch your weapon to 1 and 2. So they kind of repurpose them. And then this will probably be incredibly rare, but you could stock up and have an inventory of them. And know, all right, cool. Next time I load in, I'm going to get a pack a punch tier 3 or triple packed weapon right off the bat. And I'll be able to head into the hard part of the map right from the beginning. I don't have to wait until like, ooh, I got enough essence to upgrade. You're going to be able to jump right into it, which I think is a huge plus. All the perks essentially coming back. They kind of reworked some of them. They're not as powerful or overpowered as they were in Cold War once you got to tier 5, fully kitted them. But maybe they'll add those types of upgrades in the future. So Stamina Up will give you other bonuses on top of what it already gives, or Quick Revive will, or Deadshot Daiquiri will. Or other means to upgrade it, because Cold War came out with some good stuff and then they continued to add on it in terms of the permanent progression. So you kind of got all those that you're really used to. And then you even got the ammo mods, which Brain Rot was cool. And that's probably going to be a very meta one, because in round-based zombies, you got to hold the last zombie. You don't really use that one. And in Outbreak, you would, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't flip around. Shatter Blast is great for tanky ones. There might be other uses for different things, depending on if you need to do something specific. And you're not going to necessarily have choice all the time, unless you're buying it in game. You might be able to load in and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to spawn with this ammo mod, and you're going to be good to go. They're also bringing it back the wonder weapons, which would be nice. Maybe there'll be certain Easter eggs to unlock those. Those aren't necessarily mainline Easter eggs, but those could be steps to guarantee you get a ray gun. And those can also be schematics. The axe and tiers rewards, those are all going to be similar to DMZ. I think that's where they took most of their inspiration for DMZ, is the specific progression system with the axe, the tiers, the missions that will eventually give you a story mission, which we kind of saw within DMZ, and then the various rewards could be schematics, could be acquisitions, so you can start another match with other stuff. So there's item permanence. So it's not like you start round 1 with nothing like a round-based zombie. So obviously there's trade-offs with that. Maybe people don't want that because it's too easy. They want to be a little bit hardcore. And you have the option to load in with nothing too. So you still have that option. It'll just be one of those things. And you kind of go through that and then uncover the mysteries of the storyline continuation at season 1. So like I said earlier, they'll be able to continue this storyline. There's buy stations, cola machines, all the stuff that you're used to essentially from Outbreak. And I think this is a great opportunity for, if you've never played Outbreak and you never played Cold War, this is a good opportunity to jump into some zombies. And if you are a hardcore DMZ person, this might be something that's a little different for you. If PvP was a turnoff, and maybe you want to see kind of where this goes, because I think there's way more enemy variety as well versus DMZ. It was kind of like, all right, cool. All the AI essentially look the same, or they have a bunch of armor, or they're like a jug. This one's going to have all that, plus all the Cold War, the dog, and all the other elites that you could have in the game, literally adding into the enemy variety. And I think Outbreak kind of turned into DMZ, and then now DMZ is turning back into Outbreak, and it's basically the evolved form and combining both of them, whether that's 50-50, 70-30, 90-10, whatever your ratio is, doesn't matter. It's a combination of both. Let me know, what are you most interested in? Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.